You're not old enough to remember, but in 1980, short-term government interest rates in America were over 20%. That's not a typo. Over 20%, because inflation was completely out of control. It was very high, and they had to take drastic actions to do something. A difference between now and then, by the way, is that then America was a creditor nation as a whole. Now we're the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. So what are they going to have to do this time? They're going to have to do a lot of things that are not going to be fun for any of us. Well, what I suspect will happen is, because remember, these are not very smart people. These are bureaucrats and academics. They don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to keep their jobs. What I suspect will happen, there's a lot of pessimism around right now. Something will come, usually happens, to change that. I mean, let's suppose there's peace in Ukraine. I'm not projecting that. I'm just saying, let's suppose something like that happens. Well, that will cause grain prices to go down. It'll cause oil prices to go down. They will say everything is okay now. So they will stop having such high interest rates. They will cool off, and that'll make the markets go up a lot. But that will be the last rally, because we're coming to the end of this long bull market, and they have printed a lot of money. So things will go up, but then inflation will get worse and worse and worse, because there are a lot of problems in the system, including huge amounts of printed money, borrowed money, spent money. So then inflation will get worse, and then they'll have to try to do something else, and it will not be fun for anybody. By the 80s, things were becoming okay. It was the 70s that was the problem. That's when inflation skyrocketed all over the world. And that's when we had the problem. And that's why the head of the Federal Reserve then, his name was Paul Volcker, raised interest rates to over 20% for short-term treasury bills in the US. What people did to protect themselves was they bought silver, they bought gold. When there's a lot of inflation, if you own the things that are going up in price, you do well. You might even make money. So what people did in those days, they owned precious metals, they owned oil, they owned the raw materials that were going higher in price. The things that go up in price, whether it's wheat or oil or copper, whatever it is, if you own those things, then you're okay, you make money. They've never gotten it right. Janet Yellen was head of the Federal Reserve before. She didn't have a clue what was going on. She and Greenspan and what was his name, Bernanke, they never got it right. You know, they're just throwing darts up in the air and hope that something happens. No, they didn't get it right before. They certainly didn't get it right this time, and they're not going to get it right next time. These are not smart people. Yes, Mrs. Yellen has degrees from 2 Ivy League schools. So what? The markets were skyrocketing because A, things were bad, and the markets are a discounting mechanism. They look to the future, and the market says, okay, 6 months or a year from now, things are going to be different. So the markets were looking ahead, and there were gigantic amounts of money printing going on. You know, if you give me $1 trillion, I'll show you a very good time. My goodness, we'll have a good time. You know, every central bank in the world was printing huge amounts of money. So of course, and the money had to go somewhere. And the easiest and fastest way is for it to go into the investment world. Inflation is going to get worse and worse and worse. Either the central banks are going to have to go to double-digit interest rates, or the market is going to take it, because the inflation and the money printing and the debt, we have never seen it in world history like this. So somebody's going to have to do something drastic, whether it's the market or you or central bank, somebody.